Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 108. Day 108. Tuesday, June the 20th, 2017. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, well I want to give a shout out to one of our favorite contributors to the channel, the lovely and talented Maura. And two things. Number one, she was the first to post up on one of my videos that good news that Mike Flynn has been cleared. I heard that on the radio this morning, and so I was planning on covering it tonight. But when I got home to check my notifications, I saw that Maura had already beat me to it. So good job on that, Maura. You're absolutely right. Flynn has been cleared by the FBI. And this tells us a lot. First of all, remember, the only thing that Michael Flynn did was there was some question about the money he received from the speech he gave at the RT celebration. And also he forgot to fill out, or didn't fill out a form, registering as a foreign lobbyist for the government of Turkey, who is, of course, technically a NATO ally. But the fact that they let Flynn off the hook with little fanfare and all these hearings that they were going to have now, I don't know if they'll still have him in the Congress or not, since the FBI has basically cleared him. I doubt that the Congress will follow up with him because, quite honestly, it was never about him anyway. It was always about using Flynn to get to Trump. But now that the Russian narrative has been blown up and it no longer is resonating, and the Democrats have moved on to something else, which is this obstruction, alleged obstruction, which of course will blow up in their face as well, because there was no obstruction. Because the obstruction would have been about the investigation of Russia collusion, which doesn't exist. So you wouldn't have Trump engaging in obstruction of justice to stop an investigation about himself, when in fact the FBI director, Comey, even himself said on 3 occasions that Trump was not under investigation. So there was nothing to be obstructing. There was no investigation to obstruct. It's all just a deep state maneuver to try to destroy Donald Trump and his presidency. This is all it's about, and of course we all know that. But this tells you a lot, that the FBI would come out and very quietly announce that they've cleared Michael Flynn of any connection to Russia, Russian meddling, or participating in some sort of a, who knows what, some sort of a scheme to collude with Russia to do God knows what. The whole thing's a smoke and mirrors, and everyone knows it, and I'll have more evidence for you on that toward the end of the video. But yeah, thank you, Maura, for pointing that out. Michael Flynn has been cleared by the FBI, and so I would be very surprised to see if the Congress follows up and asks him to come and testify anymore. I think they'll probably just let it go at this point, because there's nothing there. Also, something else that I stand corrected on, and once again, thank you, Maura, for pointing this out. Maura had made a comment regarding the fact that the last few days I've been suggesting that Sessions should go back and reinstate himself as the full-fledged director, or the full-fledged attorney general, and go ahead and assume his full powers, and that once doing so he should fire Mueller. But it appears from the comment that Maura made in the comments section that it sounds like she had contacted her member of Congress or their office or something, and that they had told her that Trump and Mueller could not fire, or that Trump and Sessions could not fire Mueller, that Sessions can't go back and reinstate himself or unrecuse himself or whatever. So this is 50% correct. This is 50% correct, what Maura was told. The President of the United States is the executive branch, and he can fire anybody. Trump can legally fire Mueller. He can legally fire Sessions. He can fire the director of the CIA, the NSA, the FBI. He doesn't need to ask anybody. He can literally fire anybody in the executive branch, because the president is the executive branch. He can fire anybody. Now, would it be politically wise for him to fire Mueller? No. That's why I suggested that Sessions should do it. But as Maura pointed out in the comment section from the conversation she had, and the 50% part that is correct, is that Sessions cannot do that. Now, I wasn't aware of this. I assumed that he could just unrecuse himself, but as it turns out, he really can't. Once he has recused himself, and I don't think this is like a law, I think it's just a kind of a rule, that once he has recused himself, he cannot go back and say, okay, now I'm going to unrecuse myself. I'm going to assume the full powers of the Attorney General. I'm going to take things back over from Mr. Rosenstein. And my first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fire Mueller, or I'm going to do this or do that with Mueller. Well, as it turns out, it is correct that he cannot do that. Once you have recused yourself, then the next person up, which in this case is Rod Rosenstein, it becomes his decision. And his decision was to appoint Mueller as the special prosecutor. So only Rosenstein and Trump could fire Mueller. But it goes a little bit farther than that even. In the case of the president, he doesn't need any reason whatsoever, doesn't have to give a reason. He can fire Mueller and just say, I did it because I don't like his skin tone, I don't like his haircut, I don't like his color tie he's wearing today, or anything like that. So the president doesn't need to give a reason. Now, it would be politically unwise for Trump to do that, and I think that's the advice he's getting. Both political and legal advice that he's getting is that that would not be a good thing to do, especially because he's not going to be found guilty of anything. It's just a smear campaign, and there's other ways that you can deal with the situation, which would be much better than Trump firing Mueller, just because of the politics of it. Now, I agree on the merits of it, that there's no need to have him there. There's no need for any type of an investigation. There clearly are conflicts of interest with Mr. Mueller, with Comey, with Rosenstein, with the whole group. And I don't like the people he's appointing. They're headhunters. Most of them are anti-Trumpers, pro-Hillary people who actually have represented Hillary and the Clinton Foundation and her email scandal. So I don't like it at all. And I would have no problem with Trump firing Mueller. I would love it. I would strongly support it. So would lots of other people. But unfortunately, it would be it would turn into a media circus, and it's very similar to Watergate, where Nixon fired Archibald Cox, and that type of thing. So it's probably just a road that he doesn't want to go down. There's better ways to deal with the situation. But Maura is correct, or the information she got is correct, and I stand corrected. I believed that Sessions could unrecuse himself and assume his duties, full-time duties as Attorney General, and do what he needs to do. But as it turns out, he cannot. It is Rosenstein's decision. Now, Rosenstein could fire Mueller, but he would have to do it. He would have to have cause. So the president doesn't need cause, but the acting Attorney General, Assistant Attorney General, who made that appointment, would only do it if he had cause. And as Maura pointed out, Mr. Rosenstein has suggested at this point that he sees nothing wrong with Mueller. Now, I think that possibly over the next couple of days or weeks, it may be brought to Mr. Rosenstein's attention that there are serious conflicts of interest. If the investigation and obstruction is about the firing of Comey, then it was Rod Rosenstein who sent the memo as Assistant Attorney General to Trump, suggesting he should fire Comey. Also, we have James Comey as a very close friend of Mueller. Comey himself might be a suspect in all of this. And there's just too many people, these headhunters he's bringing in are just too connected to too many people who could be a part of this investigation. There is too many conflicts of interest. I hope that Mr. Rosenstein, I think he understands at least some of this. I think it will become, I think it will be covered more in the press, and I think there'll be more pressure that Mr. Rosenstein is going to be feeling about exactly the types of conflicts of interest that exist with Mueller, his connections to Comey, and even whether or not in the investigation, if he's investigating the reason that Trump fired Comey, then he certainly has to look at Rod Rosenstein, the man who appointed him, because he wrote the memo suggesting it should be done. And there is a bit of a conflict of interest there as well. There's a lot of conflicts of interest here. And I do think that it is going to cut into the credibility of this investigation. And just something my gut tells me, I don't know what's going to happen, but my gut tells me that this thing is going to get, that this Mueller investigation is going to get, to some degree, derailed. It's going to get put on the fast track. It's going to get blown away a bit. So I see it. I don't think that there'll be a big firing of Mueller or a big media event and a major event that's going to happen around this. I just think they're going to try to quietly let it go away, and without a whole lot of fanfare. And I think that something's going to happen in that regard. There's just too much going on with the conflicts of interest, and too many Republicans see it. I even heard a couple of hardcore anti-Trumpers suggesting that, yeah, there's a real problem with this whole thing. And of course, they found nothing through the hearings, and so I just don't see it really going anywhere. I think that Trump has now assembled he's added some people to his legal team, a really good top-notch lawyer, the man who represented Pete Rose, and who's very good. Mr. Dowd is a very, very good lawyer. He also tapped Jake Sekulow, who of course is very good with the media. So I think that this looks like the direction that they're going to go. Trump's not going to fire Mueller. What he's going to do is he's just simply going to make sure that it's pretty obvious about all the connections that Mr. Mueller has, and he's going to try to go at the credibility of the investigation, and it's going to build. Remember, the president has a loud microphone, and he definitely has a Twitter account. So, it's. I think it's going to work itself out fine. I still don't like it. I still believe that Jeff Sessions, I still believe Jeff Sessions needs to go hardcore on offense. And I like Jeff Sessions as a person. I don't like some of his policies. I don't like some of the things he says. I think he's kind of old school or whatever. I think he's kind of out of touch with some reality. But he's basically a decent guy. I mean, I don't have a personal issue that much with Jeff Sessions, but I do believe he needs to be fired. The fact that he should never have recused himself, but once he did, he gave up a lot of his power. And now, because everything, it seems, is somehow connected to the Russia thing, which is the surveillance, the unmasking, and all the things that really are concerning me and many other people, and we want to see these things looked into. We want to see the email investigation. We want to see the Clinton Foundation. But I think that Sessions has handcuffed himself because he stepped down. He stepped back from his having full authority as the Attorney General, and he severely weakened himself. And I just think he cannot be as effective as he needs to be given the circumstances. So it's not a personal thing. I don't hate Jeff Sessions. I just think that it would be better. I think it would have been best if he never would have recused himself, and he never should have. But since he did, that was a very, very bad mistake. And I think that at this point, what Sessions should do is he should go in to see the president. He should say, I messed up. I should never have recused myself. I did, and I'm in a weakened state. I'd like to look into this and this and this, but I feel like I'm compromised. I don't want to create more controversy. It's just, it's probably best if I resign. And I think Trump would accept his resignation. And I think that that's what should happen. But if Trump fired Sessions, and he can fire Rosenstein too. That's right. He can't fire Mueller, or he can fire Mueller. That would be politically not very good. But he could certainly fire Rosenstein, and he could fire Sessions. He could get a brand new Attorney General and Assistant Attorney General, and he could bring in someone who understands how to do brass knuckles warfare, and someone who really knows how to get after it. I mean, Giuliani, I'm not a huge Giuliani guy, but one thing's for sure, he's a fighter. He's a tough guy. And to have Giuliani in there as Attorney General, I almost guarantee he would reopen the Clinton investigation, the Clinton Foundation, the emails, and I can assure you that he would have no problem pulling in Mr. Mueller and locking his heels and telling him, hey, you need to get rid of these headhunters you brought in. They're compromised. They've been involved in this, and this. Find a new team. Find some people who are not connected. And he might even say, hey, you've got conflicts of interest with this guy and this guy. So, if you fired Rosenstein and Sessions and you brought in a new Attorney General, I imagine he could fire Mueller. But anyway, we'll see how this all works out. But, I have some good news I'll be giving you here in a moment why none of this is really working out for the Democrats and the deep state. It's not helping them. Now, one other thing I'll touch on here. Trump is also talking about possibly releasing some tapes, and he's supposed to have a press conference later in the week to talk about these tapes. Now, when you call into the White House, and a lot of conversations in the White House are recorded, you can go back and listen to, I've listened to all those conversations between Nixon and his people, the Kennedys and Hoover, the calls between LBJ and Hoover and LBJ and Bobby Kennedy. So there is a phone system, a recording system in the White House that records, phone conversations. So some of these tapes are available, and it's kind of interesting. I wouldn't think that Trump would want to release this or even bring it up if he thought it would make him look bad. The only reason I can think that Trump would even have a press conference and talk about these tapes of recorded conversations, possibly between him and Comey, is if he thinks it helps him. And if there is something in those telephone calls that vindicates Trump and crucifies Comey, I believe that Trump would then be probably wise to make that public. And the only reason I think he would be talking about this is if that was the case. So we'll have to watch very carefully later this week and see what Trump says about whether or not there are phone recordings between him and Comey, and whether or not they're going to release those, and what we might learn from that. It's we talk a lot about the frustration with everything that's going on, but I'm telling you, Trump just needs to weather the storm. There's very good indicators that none of this stuff is having that big of an impact, especially doesn't seem to be hurting him with his base at all. In fact, his base appears to be more energized and appears to be coming to his support. And I think that they're going to put a lot of pressure on their congressmen when they come back home for the summer to show more backbone and stand up for Trump. And there's some really good things that Trump is bringing to the party, and these guys aren't stupid. They recognize it. We'll be talking about that in just a second here. But, don't think for a minute that Trump is just going to let himself be treated like this and that he's just going to forget about it. I can absolutely guarantee you that he just strikes me as the type of person. He's going to pay a heavy price. He's taken a hell of a beating, and he knows it. Some of it is self-inflicted because him and his administration, quite honestly, and Sessions and some of the people in his administration have made some boo-boos. They've messed up, and they've left a golden opportunity, and the Democrats have come right through the door, charged through the door, and taken full advantage. So it's a learning process for Trump. Remember, he's new at this, and it's a learning process for a lot of those people in his administration. But I'm telling you that they're getting up to speed very quickly, and we know that the Trump-Russia collusion story is dead. We know that there was no real obstruction. That's going to go by the wayside. He just has to weather that storm. I think he will, and I think he'll be fine. But believe me, when the smoke clears from all this, Trump is still going to be looking to even that score. And once he gets more of the Obama people out, more of his people in, and once he gets a better foothold on everything that's going on and gets past the midterms, I do believe that we are going to see heads roll. Believe me, this is all coming back around. The Democrats, if they think that they, and the deep state and all their friends think that trying to take out Trump and all that they've done, that this is all going to be forgotten and that there won't be any repercussions for it, think again. Believe me. This is all going to come full circle, And as frustrated as we are now, we will be vindicated. Trump will be vindicated. And a lot of these people who participated in this political execution or attempted political execution of the president are going to be very, very sorry. Now, I told you Trump is winning. We just saw these polls that came out. CNN found the worst poll they could find. It put him at 41%. We had a couple polls. The Rasmussen poll put him at 50%. There's a couple polls that have him a little over 50%. Now, this is with all the deep state anti-Trump propaganda and all that's been going on for the last 4 or 5 months. Yet, he is still holding very solid and firm with his base. But most important, the thing to look at, remember, we're talking politics. And what you want to look at in politics is money. And what we are finding right now is that the Democratic Party is hemorrhaging. They are hemorrhaging. They are bankrupt. They cannot raise money. They cannot. Why is that? Well, because those big donors who they usually hit up, they just hit them up for $1.2 billion. And what did they get? The Democrats lost to a guy who spent half what they spent. Now they're out trying to tap those same people. And they're stinging because they ponied up a lot of money. They were expecting a lot of favors. They were expecting something for their 1.2 bill. But now ain't getting nothing. And so they're hesitant to come off any more cash, especially when they see the shenanigans that are being played and they realize that the Democrats have no message. They have no policy agenda. The only thing they can do is anti-Trump rhetoric, which you can see is clearly not working. There have been 3 special elections. Republicans have won all 3. Now tomorrow, this really came up on me pretty quick. I thought it was in August, but it's actually tomorrow, I believe, is when this vote is in the 6th District of Georgia, Newt Gingrich's old seat. That contest is between a fairly weak, moderate, unexcitable, not a very good candidate for the Republicans anyway. Her name is Karen Handel. She's, kind of a moderate, mainstream kind of corporate Republican, nothing to get excited about. But she's running against an out-of-towner Democrat named John Ossoff. Now, the Democrats have poured tons and tons and tons of money into this race. They've sent in rap stars and Hollywood movie stars and everyone they can send into this race. They're throwing every single thing they've got in this race, trying to win this race. And right now it's about a dead heat. So we'll see how that works out for them. But keep in mind, this is one district. They cannot do this in a midterm or a general election. They cannot throw these types of resources. I mean, it's literally like 10-1 against the Republican candidate. They should win it simply because they've put so much into it. And in fact, the Republican Party, didn't think much about it. They only started actually getting involved in this race about a week ago. For the most part, they've been just sitting back saying, yeah, well, we should win that. And they haven't really been getting all that involved. They've been raising money a lot on the national stage, which is the big important story. The fundraising for Republicans is setting records. They've never found so many people willing to give them money. They've got money coming out of their ears. The donations to the Republican Party right now are unprecedented, while at the same time the Democrats cannot get anybody to donate to them. It's two completely opposite situations going on, and that tells you a lot. It tells you that when you have people donating like they've never donated before to the Republicans, that tells you they like Trump. That's what that tells you. They support Trump. That's what that tells you. And it tells you when you look at the Democrats, they can't get anybody to give money. They're going bankrupt. They are in the red. The Republicans are way, way ahead of schedule where they normally are in money raising. And everything in politics is about money. You follow the money and you'll understand a lot about where the next 2 elections are likely to go. And right now, if you look at Trump's approval rating, despite all the beatings he's taken, if you look at the fact that the money is pouring in to the Republicans, this tells you that people are happy with Donald Trump. And you can see that the Democrats are bleeding red ink. They can't raise any money. And the DNC is in the middle of a really nasty lawsuit right now. And it doesn't look like it's a slam dunk that they're going to win this thing. In fact, it looks like it could go either way. And if they lose that, they are going to have to pay Bernie Sanders supporters somewhere in the uploads of $200 to $300 million in damages. That will literally derail them for at least the next 2 elections. You can't recover from that kind of loss of money, especially when you can't raise money now. And apparently, it seems like a lot of Democrats, donors, are looking at the 2020 and they don't see anyone that the Democrats can run. And the only person that even has national, name recognition is Clinton. And they're not going to give Clinton money anymore. I promise you that. Clinton will not find the money coming in the way she did last time. And Michael Bloomberg is a name that gets dropped a lot, but Bloomberg is too liberal to win anywhere in the Midwest, anywhere in the Farm Belt, the Rust Belt, the South. He would be like a Bernie Sanders. He would win New York and California, Washington, Oregon, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Maryland. He would win a few of these states, but he would lose big. So he's got plenty of money. He wouldn't have to worry about money. Bloomberg's got plenty of money. It's just that, he's not going to win on the national stage. He's too far left. So another thing about this race in Georgia, this Ossoff character, who's a lib, in the last 2 to 3 weeks, if you look at his speeches and his commercials he's running, he's now literally using Republican talking lines. He's borrowing literally Trump type policy objectives, talking about the blue-collar workers, talking about the middle class, talking about bringing back jobs, talking about tax cuts, talking about all these things. He sounds like a Republican. They're pouring tons and tons of money into him, sending in the Hollywood liberals, sending in the rap stars into the urban areas, trying to drive up the vote, which they have. The early voting is up about 33,000 votes over what it normally is. So they are having some success at bringing out a lot of first-time voters and Democrats, getting them energized to go vote for Mr. Ossoff. But the rhetoric that he's out there spewing sounds like a Republican. That's why he's doing so well. And of course, Karen Handel's a fairly, she's not a really good candidate. She's okay, she's not horrible, but she's not a real great candidate. But we'll see how that turns out tomorrow. But even if Ossoff was to pull off a slight victory by 1%, 2%, 3%, it'll be close. Take nothing from it. It means nothing, because what they've had to put into that race to try to win it, they cannot do that across the country. There's no way, especially with the fundraising problems that they're having now. So, anyway, Trump is winning. Fact. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. If you ever decide to go to North Korea, and I'm not sure why you would, it's a hellhole. But if you ever decide to go to North Korea, whatever you do, don't take a poster down off of a wall and think you're going to take it home as a souvenir. You have to remember that Mr. Kim Jong-un in North Korea is a god. He's a celestial being of some sort. And any of the posters on the wall with his image are considered holy, literally. So if you take one of these holy images off the wall so that you can bring it home as a souvenir, you might end up like Mr. Otto Warmbier. Now, Mr. Warmbier is from Cincinnati. He's the guy who was visiting North Korea about 1.5 years or so ago and decided he would take a Kim Jong-un poster down off the wall and take it home as a souvenir. And they, of course, arrested him and obviously did something to him because they turned him into a vegetable. Now, he came back home about a week or two ago, but he died today. And I guess he was here in Cincinnati, but he died as a result of his condition, which is that he was in some sort of a coma. So no telling what happened to him in North Korea that put him into that state. But if you ever make the horrible decision to go do a little sightseeing in North Korea, whatever you do, don't try to take a Kim Jong-un paraphernalia home with you as a souvenir. It probably won't work out very well. Okay. Comey cleared by the FBI. Trump to make an announcement on tapes. Only Rosenstein can fire Mueller or Trump. Trump's winning. We covered the 6th district race in Georgia. And of course, you don't want to go to North Korea and take propaganda off the walls for souvenirs. Not a good idea. Okay, so basically that's what's going on today for TowerGate. Oh, by the way, the Judicial Watch has gotten some information back from the NSA regarding some FOIA requests that they did regarding Susan Rice's unmasked phone calls. And they've apparently received correspondence from the NSA advising them that the information that they have requested has actually already been sent to the Obama library. It's not even classified. It's not even held in a secret vault somewhere deep inside the deep state. No, they've already sent the unmasked conversations that Susan Rice had over to the Obama library. Well, we can all listen to them. So I'm sure that Judicial Watch will be getting over there and getting their hands on that stuff. There was also some other things that they requested that they've been denied. But I imagine some of that stuff will be seen by the people on the Senate Intelligence Committee. We'll watch Trey Gowdy very carefully. Still trying to figure out what Gowdy's all about. He puts on a good show. He says the right things. He looks good. But when the rubber actually meets the road, we generally don't get any scalp. So we will certainly be watching Trey Gowdy very closely. And we'll see what happens as the summer draws to a close. And the FISA Act needs to be reauthorized. And we'll see if he and the others who talked so tough about not reauthorizing the FISA Act unless they get answers about the surveillance and the unmasking and all that sort of things, we'll see if those guys are actually stick to their guns or if they turn into noodles. We'll watch very closely. Anyway, I appreciate y'all tuning in, and thank you for the comments and sharing the videos and all that stuff. Certainly appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow. That will be, well, for you it'll be Wednesday. So we'll be back for another TowerGate issue, and we'll see what the next shoe is to drop. In fact, by the time I do the next video, we might actually have heard something in the press conference about what Trump's going to talk about regarding these tapes that he may have. That should be very entertaining. So we'll certainly be looking for that. Anyway, thanks a lot, you guys. Have a good night. Bye.